Councillor Kip, you have a presentation.
Thank you. I would just like to pass along these are my comments on the topic and the issue that we find ourselves here with on 7B, and please indulge me to read this. This is mine. I open my comments with regard to the Dam Safety Branch issuance of an order pursuant to Section 88(1)D of the Water Act, requiring the City of Nanaimo to correct the potential safety hazard of the middle and lower dams, respectively. I draw an emphasis to the term potential safety hazard as defined by the author. It is my opinion the order is not substantiated with evidence of probability of science or historic data of events within the region of which the dams in question reside. Furthermore, the timeline by which the Comptroller of Water has issued a response to action of commencement of the recommended spillway or labyrinth options by October 15, 2015 is likely not reasonable or possible to achieve. I refer back to the original statement of potential safety hazard, that being the capacity of the dam to survive a significant seismic event which has been proven to be no longer a safety hazard. Now that the seismic miscalculation of danger and a safety hazard proven incorrect, we move to the biblical atmospheric catastrophe that may or has the potential to overtop and may or have potential to be a safety hazard. Again, to what degree of safety hazard or potential are we referring? In recognition of the Mayor and Acting City Manager Cody Seward meeting with invited members of the Colliery Dam Preservation Society 2 weeks ago Sunday, and with the urging of the Acting City Manager to the CDPS to commit to a possible solution and submission, tonight we bring forward a bona fide, credible, least expensive and least intrusive method and solution that can and will undeniably meet the dam safety branch requirements within a reasonable time period. The method is the GSI overtopping and hardening of middle dam in phase 1, and with further calculations and design options, with the recalculated information, the lower dam will be remedied in phase 2. The estimate in cost, all in, including design, engineering, labor, contingencies, and beyond, is well below the proposal submitted to date, and by all accounts, would satisfy the potential safety hazard. I therefore urge and recommend that Council proceed with reviewing the information as provided by Councillor Kip, and then submitting a revised option in the form of an appeal to the Environmental Appeal Board as outlined on page 2 of the letter dated April 9, 2015 from Mr. Glenn Davidson, which will include the option to be presented.
Councillor Kip.
Can I have staff read the So, I'm going to go quickly through history, emergency management, regulation, and the future. And I'll breeze through some of it. People know the way I present sometimes. The history of compliance. The Colliery Dams, 100 years of community. History, culture, recreation, natural environment, social equity, and risk. We've had decades of Colliery Dam files and studies. We've done from the early 80s, or since we took over with the Greater Nanaimo Water District from the coal workings, we've studied these dams. We've done an immense amount of work on them. Dam safety is involved all the way through it. They get copies of our plans. They're involved in the working. We've done seismic assessments of the upper dam. The investigations of the risk, are they catastrophic, are they manifest destiny, are they acceptable risk? We've done the risk assessment that Golder did in 2014, and basically done over a period in December 2013. The risk assessment is very intense but very subjective, and they assess probability of objectivity and subjectivity throughout it. They talk about the failures and breaches of overtopping, of other causes, piping relations, magnitude of the frequency exceedance, or the new methodology of judging how earthquakes work. They went through it on a number of things, and the continual thing was it worked out to maximum precipitation and a seismic event, basically together at one certain. And of course, the simulated sequences they use, the failure modes with particular lower dam releases, timing and warning or no warning, downstream inundation, it's all in there. But it was based on maximum precipitation. I've asked before about the watershed upstream values, and has the watershed been studied? Hydrology, volumes of water, water calculated, like Mr. Stead said. When you look at this, Westwood Lake in comparison to the Colliery Dams sections there and other dams. Long-term investigation and investment. Spillways have been investigated, and of course there's been concerns, numerous reports and confusions on the spillway. They're anywhere between 35 to 55. Other method of calculation that Mr. Stead was talking to puts a spillway around 100 when it can actually, when you take the fall into account. Studies of flow capacity to the community. This is the one that talks about the 1,000-year flow increase versus peak maximum flow. And that's where I think that the community does accept many risks and many standards, and I believe we can shoot for the 1,000-year risk. As I said earlier, I don't know what happened 23,000 years before me, and I'm not certain what's going to happen 23,000 years after me. I'll go half a biblical term and go to 1,000 years. So staff's professional obligation is to give us the best information, and they tried to do that, and standards change, and of course the 3-minute failure and 150 deaths were proven inaccurate. And at that point, that was the best information we had. Of course, that was based on our planning, our catastrophic failure. Exercises were based on, if you see the second red line down, heavy rainfall threatened the dam structures and anticipated a possible collapse. 1,000 people to be evacuated. We've now learned that the area of impact is less. And again, dam safety based their risk on the catastrophic collapse that was proven false originally. Dam safety, as until December 2014, still classified as extreme. They actually had a letter in the newspaper saying that we had to keep on track. And these were huge risks. Mr. Scott Morgan wrote the letter. January 2011, the 2010 safety inspection, no concerns. Same thing, 2012 for the 2011, and this is the 21st or 8th of January 2012, no concerns. Then in February 24th, 2012, the city describes the ponds in an email to the Dam Safety Branch as ponds, and then they asked Dam Safety to help to keep the focus on the risk. But it was the risk that didn't exist. It was the massive failure. Again, on the information that they had, Dam Safety wrote back, Dam Safety offered to do our best to help out for that risk that didn't exist. We've gotten new information now. Show me the money, do the right thing. This is a deficiency list from the Dam Safety Branch. It's a self-help guide. When you go through that list, there's not an unpositive check on the list. It's just one of those things I've done, looked over the dams. It means this type of, if you can see that facing of the dam, that's bad for overtopping. It can break down. There's no ground stabilization. So that's probably one of the things that needs to be improved. Emergency management is an amazing business, and there's no next time, usually no second chances. Things happen. Floods happen. There will be a next time for floods, but there's not a second chance, but they do come slow. We know that. Some events just build. Pandemics continue to build. We have far greater concerns facing Nanaimo, drought, water interruption, earthquakes, than this actual dam overtopping. Mother Nature's impacts and the billions of dollars we're going to have to spend. There's categories of disaster. We have natural ones, earthquake, flood, forest fire, landslide, severe, other ones. We have emergency planning objectives, actually from local and intergovernmental planning objectives that match both our cities and current government. They change from time to time. We have these 6 strategies in our program guide, and we meet that by assessing the risk, mitigating it, planning for response, planning recovery, ensuring preparedness, and evaluating. We have a great emergency program. This is our manifest local threats, 22 of them, which you can see dam failure is one of them, aircraft crashes, 4 different types of aircraft crashes can affect us. Look at the one that says telecommunications failure where banks are shut down. These are big risks, they're manifest, and we have to get back to life and business as usual. Now, simple subjective calculations will put a consequence and a probability. An earthquake has a catastrophic consequence, but it has an unlikely probability, or maybe even possible. I'll give it the risk of possible. So an earthquake calculates subjectively 4 times 2 is 8. Hazardous material, for example, would have a major consequence. An SO2 truck flips over in an intersection, 100 people can die. It's probable, with the accident ratio 7 times higher likelihoods and things for automobiles, So it works out to about a 9. A dam, in a simple calculation, consequence is minor. We've heard 0.25 deaths attributed to this flow, or up to 10 maybe. Well, but I say 0.25. But it's still unlikely. It's a rare occasion. But the 1 in 1,000 probably is bumped up, so it's possible. So it might be a 1 times 2 to a 2, or a 1 times 1. Very minor. Again, if I go back to the calculations here, these ones are consequential much higher. This is much lower as a subjective calculation. And again, WTS, HTF, I won't say what it is, but getting back to life and business as usual. We accept the risk. Under BC regulation, emergency preparedness prepared by local must reflect assessment of the relative risk of occurrence and the potential impact of people and properties of emergency disaster. And we do that. We have that. We have the Chase River watershed that is only 158,000 cubic meters. It is 3 million cubic meters for the Westwood compared to 158, and we have 9 dams in the city that exist. So we have to be cautious of how we spend. We know the water catchment ponds and what they exist from. Risk management principles I've concerned myself with, there's some of them. Do we have a global perspective, all of our risks? Are we looking forward? Have we open communication, integrated management, continuous process, shared product vision, teamwork? Have a few of these principles been missed in the process? And that's what I've always tried to question, is the process, not the answers. Do the least intrusive. Culture significant trees in the area where they want to rip the dam up. Spillway Wayne, well I spelled that wrong, plans millions of dollars plus very intrusive. The labyrinth estimated started at 8 million and lower the level lake, was it 15 meters? It's huge. That's the history. Now the future. Managing the overtopping by massive excavation and widening spillway, not certain that's the thing. Beautification and dam hardening. That little sketch there that you can see, if you're looking at the left-hand side of the page, there's a little sketch of a bench down in the corner.
Tree.
And then there's an accessible wheelchair ramp confirming up the left-hand side of the bank, so people can actually roll or walk down into the water. It also hardens that corner. At the other end of it, we've hardened the bank, geostabilized it. Across the middle, that big pink section is a raised bench walkway that meets the 1,000 year event, and it creates a beautiful public area that this community deserves after all the stuff that's gone on with this. It'll be an amphitheater at the recreation area. The lower Colliery Dam overtopping, getting rid of the 2/3, gives us a pretty simple, basic example. And this comes right out of some of our stuff, and it's the Q is acceptable community risk. Hardening and stabilization and beautification of the lower dam. We concrete bench berm height as required from the northern overtopping to the spillway edge. The southern spillway side raised and hardened. The existing spillway raised possibly a meter, like Mr. Stead talked about, possibly widened, sidewalk built, so when the water does come up, it goes onto the sidewalk and is contained within that spillway. At the edge where the spillway meets the bridge, it can be flared. So this does raise a bit of the dam, but it focuses the water, makes that spillway double the size. And we talked about replacing the bridge and taking out that center column to increase the 55 cubic meter capacity, doubling the size up to 100. Then there's accessible ramp and access and dam edge hardening. And the recreation area would have hard surface hardening. And if you see the dotted lines on this drawing on both sides, that's the maximum capacity of the flow over at the Q1000. This is the overtopping Q1000 plus 2/3. So that's the most it would be. And here's a dam bench berm spillway enhancement example of a bench berm in California for flooding from global warming. It's all across Huntington Beach, right across where Councillor Bestwick is pointing. $1 million houses. They ran this wall for miles to protect from flooding of the ocean. And we know wave action, and that has a horrendous impact on beaches. So I would suggest similar to massive flow of water coming up against the dam. And I know that Gabion baskets have held back massive floods. So, geostabilization for managing our risk. And we've looked at a number of risks. And where we've gone with this is looking at overtopping, managing risk, and GIS anchoring for the berm bench. This is the type of construction that they do in our bird bench and a seating little area that people could walk on. There's going to be a 6-foot sidewalk before the dam so people could roll down in their wheelchairs to those areas. And the end by the bridge would be an amphitheater, a beautiful place. Of course, the first thing would be geostabilization for the middle dam. You can see those 4 pictures, that's current today. Those are pictures of the dam. Geostabilization for the middle dam is a proven series that addresses overtopping failures. A number of different companies that do it. We've talked to GSI because we were involved a year ago and started with pricing, and the mayor and Mr. Seaver have talked about this type of stabilization. The historic and cultural values, the GSI financial proposal, the total project cost indicates a savings of $5 million from the proposed spillway option and $4.2 million from the alternative overtopping option. Both the lower and middle dams from catastrophic overtopping failure for $3 million or less. This fee would include all engineering sign-off based on the Golder flow calculations and other engineering completed to date, supply and installation of mats, anchors, landscape works required to complete. And this, if the city is ready to do it, they could final design and fee estimates pro bono, present the proposal to the city, and document form, present the proposal in live presentation meetings. So we're looking at somewhere around a $3 million fix for both dams. And of course, if we fix the upper one first, there's a chance that we could do that. So again, hardening and beautification of the park. We tore the heart out of part of Harewood on this park, and this would really help to meet risk, environment, social, cultural, financial needs. Risk management of overtop. Environment, limited in-stream work. There's hardly any in-stream work in this. And if I suggest that a wheelchair ramp is really beautification and safety, we have very little ways for people to get out. You see my little ladder in the corner? There's no ladders for people to even get out of there if they fall in. They have to head towards the spillway, or a set of stairs are way over by the ramp. So this would improve safety, social park enhancements, culture, historic values, financial, least intrusive, and economical. It meets all of our community pillars from our strategic planning. We've done tons of evacuation planning, response, and recovery planning across our province. We have different command. There's all sorts of signages that we have in place. We have to manage the risk. We have to do safety for social events. We have to protect the history of this place. We have to protect the social equity. Social norms of acceptable risk. This is from the Dam Safety Guidelines 2007. And basically it says the EDGM value must be justified to demonstrate conformance to social norms of acceptable risk. Justification can be provided with help of failure modes, analysis focused to the particular modes that can contribute to the failure, initiated by a seismic event. Well, we've dealt with those. Social norms of acceptable ability. It's really interesting. What there is, the social risk generally refers to a hazard that it realized could impact society and thus cause social political response. Societal risk may be seen as a relationship between the frequency of a particular hazard and the number of casualties if the hazard is realized. In applications dealing with the hazard from engineering station where the predominant issue is life safety, societal risk is characterized by graphs showing frequencies of events that should cause or could cause multiple fatalities. The key, though, the action to reduce the risk is clearly necessary if the risk is not acceptable. The ALARP principle, the one that we've sat our risk on, is based on the duty to reduce risk to life to the point where further risk reduction is impractical or requires action that is grossly disproportionate in time, trouble, and effort to the reduction of risk achieved. Yeah. So that's our societal norms that we'll accept. If the downstream values are $2 million and we want to spend $8, it's impractical. So acceptable consequences are there. Flood table has earthquake standard-based assessment. We can fix this. Concrete berms, southern spillway fixed, existing spillways raised. Do the right thing. We got to meet the greater needs. And you know, this is my bad humor. You know it's bad.